Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is MMH Interviews. I'm your host, Sasha Clairvasian. Stoked for this conversation. We're really looking for this. I have Arun Narayanan. He is an LA-based writer, filmmaker, and creator of the award-winning web series Arun Considers. Arun, how are you, man?
Oh, I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. I've had a lot of fun getting to know your work. It's very funny and very thoughtful, which is exactly what we're looking for. So we're thrilled to have you today.
Thank
Man, I
you.
want to start here. It's just kind of what I'm curious about. What do you would you say is the funniest film you've ever seen? What's your favorite comedy?
I mean, it's such a hard question. And actually, I think it's two different answers between funniest movie and best comedy. Because I think like a great comedy, a great movie that is a comedy isn't necessarily the one that's like making me laugh the most,
Hmm.
you know? But, and also like, I think the answer to this like has shifted over the course of my life because, sense of humor changes. And so I was, you sent me this question ahead of time. So I was just like thinking about it because it's so hard. I'm gonna go with Borat. I feel like I remember,
Okay,
yeah. I just remember seeing
okay.
Borat in the theater in college with a bunch of college friends, and just like the theater was just uproar, laughing the entire time. And it's also this movie that is doing this kind of brilliant satire on top of being just like consistently hilarious. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with.
That's fantastic. Super funny film. Love Borat. I mean, so my name's Sasha, and
Mm.
before Sasha Baron Cohen, people were always thought I had a girl's name, and a lot of
Yeah.
horses named Sasha, which
Oh,
hasn't
really?
been great. Yeah, too many. So I feel like a huge like connection to him for helping after Sasha Baron Cohen. People, it really changed how people received my name.
Oh, that's so interesting. I'm waiting for a famous Arun then to fix it for me. Yeah.
I feel like you're next up.
Oh, okay, cool.
Man, I wonder if you can help me. I love movies. Sometimes I get confused. I see these movies and I'm like, why isn't this funnier?
Yeah,
It's not, I'm a musician, so I know we make mistakes live,
sure.
right? And I understand in a stand-up you might make mistakes. But very much like an album, it should be
Yeah.
perfect. It's your album. If it's your movie, you have lots of takes. I just saw Free Guy.
Okay.
Did
Yeah.
you
I
stumble
saw Free
through it?
Guy.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think Ryan Reynolds is very funny. I actually
Sure.
think he's talented.
Yeah. Yeah.
They certainly were letting him riff. They
Yeah.
had as much time and money as they wanted. Has Taika,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
very funny.
Yeah.
Wasn't that funny? Can you help? As someone
Yeah.
in this industry, what's up with that?
All right. I'll try. So I think one factor that just doesn't get taken into account usually in these conversations is taste. I mean, I was just saying earlier, like how my sense of humor has kind of shifted over my life. Like, I remember when I was at USC film school, getting notes from like professors and other students on my work at supposedly the greatest film school in the world, and just realizing, oh wow, these people all not all a lot of these people have really terrible taste. Like, oh, and if you I started to think about it more, like the movies that are made, the movies that are successful, the movies that get nominated or win Oscars, whatever. Like, it's not like we can all agree on which ones are good, right? Like the movies that win Best Picture, half the people are going to immediately think it's terrible because it won Best Picture. But like and I think comedy is no different. It's like we think something is funny, other people might not think that's funny, and vice versa. Now, I think one way that that's also become even more of a problem in the last like 10, 20 years is because every big movie is trying to please everyone in the world. They have to like create comedy that is sort of as flat as possible, to like reach the most audiences. Like, because comedy, like I think real humor, great humor, I think is like really specific and personal, and so that means it's going to alienate some people. And so if you're trying to make a comedy like Free Guy, that's like a big budget Disney, comedy. They're less interested in being like extremely funny for like the Ryan Reynolds fans, and more interested in being at least a little bit funny and generally entertaining to the entire world. You know?
Mm. Yeah.
So
We, let's just talk about the state of comedy. So
sure.
we're in this kind of woke time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which I'm super for. Our whole platform is about representation, equity, and pushing those conversations. So we're here for it. You
Yeah.
look back at, man, you watch the Wedding Crashers, the 4-Year-Old Virgins, and there is
Sure.
cringe-worthy stuff for a 2020 mindset.
Absolutely.
Comedy kind of bread and butter is making fun of things and poking fun at groups. Where do you see the next 10 years going?
Man, it's a good question. I I'm not sure. I so like it, as I said, like it feels like the direction that the sort of mainstream biggest billionaire corporation kind of movie makers are going is this sort of big, broad, flat kind of like let's try to make something that's funny for the entire world. And
Mm.
then so I think as that sort of is heading in that direction, I think that always means that like there's an equal thing happening in the other direction, which is small filmmakers, small comedians, people who like have a very specific alt kind of taste even. I think like as things in one direction are going to get really big and another direction they're going to get really small, and I think like we have all
Mm.
these like streaming services that allow content to be made that's like only for like a smaller number of people. I mean, it depends on the streaming service, and they all have like different sort of ethoses around it. But I'd like to think that we're heading for a resurgence in like small comedy that like just a few people are going to think is like really hilarious, uh, and that'll be the goal, and they'll succeed. And then a few of those will end up breaking out and like surprisingly hitting a lot more people. But like I think the instinct to try to please everyone, I think, is hurting comedy. But I'm hoping that that'll be counteracted by an instinct to please only a few people, and that'll lead to helping comedy. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. What are some of those for the small groups?
Yeah,
Kind of dig into that a little bit. Who are those going
yeah,
to
yeah.
serve? Who are you? What niches are that is going to that interest?
Well, I mean, I guess I can just think about like my own personal taste, which I know is shared by some, but not by plenty. Which is like I'd say the funniest movie I saw in the last couple of years was Bad Trip, the Eric Andre movie on Netflix. I really like Eric Andre. A lot of
Okay.
people find him too, I don't know, abrasive or something. He's like kind of a prankster who's, and like it's very sort of stoner comedy. But it's like it's a niche. It's a niche market of people who like absurdist, surrealist, somewhat mean spirited, but overall, you know, uh, in good fun kind of comedy that like absolutely would not translate in like I don't know some parts of the world certainly,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
my parents wouldn't get it at all. Absolutely, you
Yeah.
know. I think that's like and you know I think we're gonna get to this a little later, but like I work at Netflix, so like I actually can see the numbers of like you know how many people are watching any given thing, and I know that there's a lot of comedies that I think are great that don't get seen by a lot of people. Or like comedies that even like critics think are great, or like Twitter thinks is great, but actually, if you look at the numbers overall, like not that many people are watching. So I think already there's like a little bit of this happening where there are these like niche comedies on Netflix that are getting a lot of love from like the target demographics, you know, and I think it's just we're just waiting for like one of those kinds of things to turn into the next Squid Game, you know, like you know they've been able to say, you know, we can get a tiny story out of anywhere. Like here's this random independent thing kind of from South Korea that became the most watched thing in the world, right? So it was like it wasn't designed necessarily to like blow up and become this big thing for the entire world. It was a pretty you know it was a specific story, whatever you know whatever. Like did that just happen to have this like universal appeal? And I think comedies that are kind of targeting this very sort of specific group, one of those will break out, and then I think we'll have like a whole new era of comedies, in the way that I think we currently have an era of global television shows.
Yeah, yeah,
that Squid Game is a part of,
yeah, yeah. So Arun, who are we gonna make fun of, man?
yeah. In terms of the woke stuff, sure. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I go ahead.
yeah, let me just frame this a little bit. So like
Yeah.
the Wedding Crashers, there's a lot of
Yeah.
like gay jokes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's out.
Yeah, sure.
And that's canceled. And thank God. I'm the first in line to say that's out. I watched
I'm going to push back on that just slightly.
Okay, great.
Because I think the gay jokes aren't out. It's just that like only the gay people can tell them, kind of,
Okay.
So I think the era we're in right now is we don't like it when people are punching down, right? When it feels like a majority group is making fun, a majority powerful group is making fun of a minority suppressed group.
Yes.
So, and I think that's the good thing, right? That's happened. I think it sometimes gets taken a little too far, and I think that can hurt some comedic instincts, but I think that's just the challenge of comedy, is like navigating that and still finding a way to be funny without doing that punching down. What are we going to make fun of? We're going to make fun of ourselves. We're going to make fun of each other. We're going to make fun of the world. We're going to make fun of the society that we're all in a way that's like true to our perspective, the person who's telling the joke. So like we can't be like telling jokes about an experience that like we don't truly understand, and so I think there's plenty that we do truly understand, that we can make jokes about. I think we're just like getting a better sense of what things we didn't understand as well as we thought, so yeah.
Well, I love that, totally with you. Our last interview was with a New York actor named Andrew Duff, and he's autistic, and we had a really, really compelling conversation about should non-autistic people play autistic people, and who should have the ability to do that, and can autistic people play non-autistic people? And it was a really interesting conversation, and I wonder if it pertains to comedy, where it's kind of like, if you're going to make fun of a group, you got to be in the group now. If you want to talk shit or you want to call out Jews, you got to be a Jew.
I think that's yes, and I think though, like, I think you can get away with it if you are not part of that group, but can prove that you're like very much connected to that group in a way that you're coming at real. That it feels real, that you're coming at the joke from this real place, that the people who are in the group are with you. Like, I mean, I don't know if this is a great example, but this is the first one that's coming to mind. Neil Brennan, he's a comedian who was Dave Chappelle's writing partner. He's a white guy, but he and Chappelle, are the kind of the mastermind behind Chappelle Show. And like in a lot of Neil Brennan's comedy, he talks about how he like has a lot of friends who are Black people, and like that's largely through his relationship with Chappelle. And like, so he ends up making some jokes, I think, that are outside of his personal frame of reference, but the way that he talks about these things, granted, I'm not Black, so like I don't think I can be the official judge on whether this is working or not, but it seems to me that like he is coming at it from a place of, I am like close enough to this community that I can make some jokes that they seem to accept, that you guys seem to accept. It just feels like he's in it enough that he has some leeway in there, and I think it's similar for like writing as well. Like if I'm writing a movie about characters that don't look like me, then I want to make sure it feels authentic. So the best way to do that would be to talk to those people in real life that I'm writing about, right? And so like if I've done enough of that, interviewed them enough or whatever, like then hopefully it comes through, and then like I am allowed or whatever to write that story, right? As long as it works. Unfortunately, you can only judge it at the end. It's like once you've done it and then people are looking at it and say, okay, this feels authentic, good job, you're allowed. But like you're giving them permission after the fact. So like so no matter what, like the person who's doing the writing or telling the jokes like has to take that risk at some point, if they're outside of that community and making a joke about that community. So it is a risk, but I think you can mitigate that risk by being a part of that community as much as you can, interviewing them or whatever, yeah. So I think that's how you can still kind of make the gay jokes or whatever. But they just have to be more thoughtful than they used to be.
Beautiful stuff, man. I'm totally with you. And it makes me think, I think a lot about, so I'm from Western Massachusetts. I live in Austin. So I've seen kind of different cultures, different parts of the country. In Western Mass, there's a lot of really liberal people. They have Black Lives Matter signs, white people, in their yards. They don't know any black people.
Yeah, totally.
And they talking on Twitter, Black Lives Matter, I'm all for diversity. You don't have any people of color in your life. Then you get down here to Texas, and there's people, maybe they're more right-wing, conservative, maybe they have some bigotry beliefs. They also work with people of color. Their neighbors are black. There's a lot of Latinx people. They're part of a diverse community. And it just kind of makes me think, like, which group is actually more connected?
Yeah.
These Southerners, they may hold some generational beliefs, but they also know how to talk. Like, I don't know, these people are in their life. It's just something interesting.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Listen, so I grew up in Connecticut, and I went to college in Massachusetts. So I totally know.
Wait, where?
Brandeis University.
Okay, great. Yeah. Cool.
Waltham. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, I know the vibe you're talking about overall.
Right.
Sure. And it's here in LA too, and like because LA is a very diversity overall, but it's also like fairly like segregated, in the way it's set up. So so growing up in a small town in Connecticut, I was just surrounded by white people, and then I went to college, and I got a little bit more of a sense of the world, I feel like. But even then, it's like still Massachusetts. What you're describing reminds me of the Black Jeopardy sketch with Tom Hanks from Saturday Night Live, where it's like Tom Hanks is playing the sort of Trump supporter guy, but like he and the black contestants on the game show seem to have the same way of thinking about things, like surprisingly, right? So I think I think we make assumptions about liberals, conservatives, whatever, when it comes to this kind of stuff. And what it comes down to is, do you have like, are you in a society where you're interacting with people who aren't like you, And I think you can imagine what that's like all you want. And I think some people imagine what that's like and come out with a rosy liberal perspective. And some people imagine what it's like and come out in a fear mongering, like problematic perspective. But like, you're not going to develop a perspective that means anything unless you're actually like in it and hanging out with people that are unlike you.
Yeah, I think just being around other people speaks more volumes than anything you can do.
Than anything you can just like post on Twitter or whatever.
Post or even read. I mean, I think reading's great and
Sure.
learning, but if you want to open your mind, just talk to other folks. Other folks.
Yeah.
That could be anything.
Totally.
It could be, other white people from Eastern Europe. It could be women.
Absolutely.
It could be queer folks. Just meet them and just interact and learn and be open-minded. Anyway, we're not going to be able to make that happen right now. I do want to ask you this, Arun. So we're kind of touching on this idea of diversity. In one of your videos, you said it's a word you don't really connect with. I really want to hear more about that and how you feel about that.
I have an episode of my web series Arun Considers. It's called Arun Considers Diversity, and the first line of it, I think, is I hate the word diversity. Basically, I just think it's a dehumanizing word. I think it's become that way. So I mean, in that episode, I was mostly thinking about it in the context of hiring and like how I hate the fact that depending on the job I'm applying to, my race might be given more weight than my ability to do the job. That sort of general sort of diversity hiring concept just like feels icky to me as the person who's like going through it. But that said, like diversity is a good thing, obviously. Like every group of people, as
we just talked about that.
We just talked about like talking to other people who are unlike you opens your mind. So yes, I think like every group of people can benefit from being more diverse, but it's a word meant to describe a group, not meant to describe a single person. There's no such thing as like a diverse person. As soon as I started hearing like we're looking for a diverse candidate, that's when I started to hate that word, because like that's when they're just using it as a code for minority, and usually racial minority, and then it just got like used more and more for political purposes. This word diversity. And I think something similar happened to the word woke in the last few years, right? Like being woke is supposed to be a good thing. It's supposed to be someone who's awake and alert and like aware of these issues that we weren't aware of before. But then the word got corrupted. It's like by politicians and giant corporations because it came to represent this enemy. And I think diversity is the same thing. It's like they were being told that they had to like these companies, these politicians were being told that they had built themselves up on these exclusive, racist, biased systems, and they needed a word to describe the issue, and that issue became diversity or wokeness, and yeah, I mean, I do think like the word diversity is being used now a little bit better than it was a few years ago when I made that video. Like I think a lot of people have evolved on realizing that like diversity is only part of the issue. It's like like at Netflix, and I think probably most big companies, I feel like I hear diversity and inclusion more than I hear diversity now, right? And I think that's a good thing because it shows that like diversity. I think I'm going to butcher this phrase, but I feel like I heard someone say this. Diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance, something like that. And it's like, okay, just by addressing diversity, just by hiring some token, whatever person of color for your white company is not solving anything. But like bringing in people like in an inclusive manner that like you really feel like they're bringing them in as part of the group and like actually having conversations with these people and not just one also, like I feel like we're heading in that direction more and more. Like I think people are thinking about it in that more sort of holistic way. So, maybe wokeness will kind of head in that direction eventually too. I don't know. But right now I just hate that I like hear it only in like sort of a negative way. But yeah, so that was my long rambling response.
No, that was very eloquent and very clear, and I really appreciate it. I want to press a little bit on the first thing you said because I just want to understand it, or I just want to hear a little bit more. So yeah. I'm a white dude, so I don't this is not something that I understand at all. Yeah. But it would seem like I can't imagine. But if you're not a white man, that like until the last few years, that has hurt your chances of getting a job.
Yes.
Right. So for the first time in literally the history of America, it now might help you. So what I would think that would feel exciting, or that maybe there'd be a feeling of like, for my parents, I should take advantage of that. I'm hearing you say that it does. You want to be hired on your merit. You don't want to feel like a diversity hire. So you're saying opposite. So talk me about what. Can you respond to that?
Yeah. No. Yeah, it's absolutely a good point. I think both things are true. Like I think it's like, and unfortunately, like it's not like I have a solution for this, right? It's like I think. So I was thinking about this initially when I was in high school, when affirmative action was like a topic. I mean, I guess it's still a topic, but I remember. This is gonna be a little bit of a tangent, but I'm thinking of this story. So in high school, I took a statistics class, and one of our projects that we that I did was like my friend Ryan and I were partners. He was a white guy. We decided to investigate bias among our fellow students as a statistics project. And we didn't realize what we were going to uncover, but it just became really interesting. But like basically we wrote this question about affirmative action. And the question basically was, do you support affirmative action? And with a little bit of a preamble that was the same that we both would give. And we chose a random sampling of students at the school. Ryan asked a set of students that question, and I asked a set of students that question. There was a statistically significant difference between the responses that we got. I got a lot more people saying that they were in support of affirmative action, and he got a lot more people saying that they were not in favor. So therefore, like, people change their response depending on who they're talking to. That means that like people are basically telling me something that is not true, probably. Like and in fact, like I remember one of the guys that I asked this question to afterwards, like ran up to me and was like, I'm sorry, I just like felt like I had to say that I support it. And like I was kind of glad that he said that, because it was like sort of illuminating to me of like, you know, that I'm being treated differently, you know, like even if like well, it wasn't in these like obvious, overt, discriminatory, problematic ways, people are essentially lying to me, you know. And so like, and then as I was applying to colleges and stuff, I was thinking about like, okay, if I'm doing really well in school, I have a great GPA, I'm doing all these great extracurriculars, does all that shit matter? Like, am I just gonna ultimately, am I gonna be like chosen for because I'm a minority? Like, I mean, that's like that one aspect of myself that like I can't control, you know. Like I can't control that I'm Indian American. I can control my education, my skills, like at least a little bit more, and so I'd like to be judged on those things. So yeah, that's kind of the root of my sort of icky feeling about it all. That said, like I totally get it, right? Like I do think it's we're heading in the right direction by being more open to diverse candidates. I'm using the word in the way that I hate it, right? But like I get it. Like I don't know like a better way. And for now, like until we get to a place where it's truly like a meritocracy, but like I don't know when or how we get there. Like so
if you figure it out, let us know.
Yeah, we'll do. I'm thinking about it. Yeah. I mean, in my mind, like the issue has always been more about nepotism than about like racism, frankly. Like I think the issue is that, you know, if you're somebody who gets to hire people, then
you have power.
You have that power, and that power is you're going to use that like in a way that benefits you to some extent. And like one of the ways is like, I'm going to hire my friends. I have a bunch of friends that I know need a job.
That's how the world works.
That's how the world
works.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if it so happens that you're living in Western Mass and like all of your friends are white people, then yeah, you're going to be more likely to hire white people. I think even this issue sort of gets solved by what we were talking about earlier about like just being in communities, hanging out with more people who are unlike you, developing a community of people around you that is not like you. Then the nepotism issue is not an issue anymore because you have a diverse group of friends that you can choose from, you know. So maybe that's something around that is how we solve.
No, that's great. You said you didn't have the answer, and you kind of found the answer. I think you got to the root. I think getting a variety of people in positions of power, it will trickle down.
Yeah.
If there's different kinds of people making decisions, those decisions will have a variety of perspectives.
Absolutely. And I think a problem with a lot of the sort of diversity hiring initiatives are that they're not about the leadership level; they're about below. And like, so you still just have like
exactly that's exactly
decisions
right
about the below, right? And they're not promoting them. So like, and I see this in like TV writers' rooms where like, you know, for a while I was trying to get into like a, you know, TV writers' room, going into like staffing interviews and stuff. And like, you know, there's all these like diversity writers fellowships for, so like, you know, ABC or CBS or whatever will have this program where it's extremely competitive. They end up selecting a handful of people, and then at the end of the program, maybe these guys get staffed in a writer's room and end up being like the one like non-white dude or whatever in the room. But like, it's also set up so that like that's for the lowest rung in the room, and then like they don't promote them. They just like they've checked off the box of like putting this person in there, and so then no systemic change happens. It's just this like, all right, we've added a token person to this one room. And also, by the way, like it's a diversity program, so like a different the company is like paying for that one person. The TV show is not paying for the person, and so therefore the show doesn't care. Like they're it's not their budget, So I don't know. Yeah, I could go on and on, but like it comes down to leadership, as you said. We need to get more diversity in leadership.
Yeah. So we obviously cover basketball. Yeah. That's our brand. And last off season there were 8 coaching openings. 7 were filled by African Americans, which is really cool. But that said, I feel not high enough. We need diversity in ownership. It's just not a high enough level to make the full impact that it needs to be. I think there's one owner of color, and that's Michael Jordan. To this point, just made me think of that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, sorry, I froze for a second while you were talking. Okay. But I think I did. I think we're caught up now. Yeah. No. I unfortunately am not. I don't follow basketball quite enough to be able to comment on that.
Throw out a hot take.
Yeah, to give out my hot take there, but that's interesting.
Arun, you got to tell us about your work, man. What are you doing at Netflix?
Sure. So,
and how did you get that job?
Yeah. So basically, how I got it was, so after graduating from USC, I was trying to kind of make it as a screenwriter, and like I needed like a day job essentially. And so one of the things I was doing was working as a freelance video editor, and I was doing some post-production stuff. But then there's one job that kind of came up. My friend Avi, who went to both Brandeis and USC with me actually, was working at Disney, and they were starting this project, which is way before Disney Plus, but this is the sort of this work was going to eventually fuel Disney Plus, basically tagging content. So it was like they needed a bunch of contractors to watch a bunch of Disney shows and movies and tag a bunch of things in them. And that was like things as simple as like tag every time this character appears on screen in Grey's Anatomy. So like I'm watching episodes of Grey's Anatomy and then tagging every time a certain character comes on screen. Eventually that's training these like algorithms and models that can then automatically detect those spaces so that they can do all kinds of other stuff with that. Like for example, now like a trailer editor at Disney can like type in a database, like give me all the shots in Grey's Anatomy that have Meredith Grey in them. We've tagged those things / like a machine has now learned these things. And so it just pops out all of those clips. And that's the sort of most basic version of it. But like there's increasingly complex things that you can tag in a show or movie. So I was just a contractor initially and I was like, this is a great sort of side hustle kind of thing, make me a little bit of money. I can kind of control my own hours too. It was like pretty great. You could just like watch however much content you had time to watch, basically, and tag some stuff, get paid by the hour. And then I had time to do my writing. Now I did that for long enough. And also this was like a small enough and new enough group that I kind of rose to the ranks to some extent, I suppose. And like, and was, was experienced enough that I was like, that my opinions became, relevant to some of the decisions they were making around it. And, it was a new field. Like not a lot of people knew how metadata worked, like how all this like, and metadata is just data about data. And in this case, the second data is the TV show or movie content, right? So we're just data about content. And we quickly, once you start looking at that, you realize that there's infinite pieces of data that you can come up with to describe a movie or TV show. Like there's genre, there's where the character appears, but there's that's like, so surface level. There's like a million, like point out, you could tag something, every single thing on screen, or you could tag every theme, every, whatever. So like, so developing this a framework for how to do this at Disney was interesting, and also just like gave me this sort of experience in a new field that not a lot of people had. So basically, a friend of mine saw this job posting at Netflix on LinkedIn that looked kind of similar to what I was doing at Disney part time, and she said, "Oh, you should apply to this." So I did, and it basically was like I'm going to say like a grown-up version of what I was doing at Disney. It was like a full-time, more of like a what's the word? I mean, technically it's a research and development role. So like we're trying to improve
R&D.
the way that Netflix does the categorization classification, which of content, which ultimately helps with their personalization algorithms and stuff. So the team that I'm on, the larger team, we like to call ourselves like the humans behind the algorithm. So like
you're behind the Netflix algorithm.
I mean, I'm one of many people that
Whoa.
yeah.
I feel like I'm seeing inside the machine right now. Damn, bro.
I know. It's a cool place to be. But
wow.
I mean, look, I'm not an engineer. I'm not a data scientist. So there's a lot of smarter people than me who are doing the actual kind of programming and stuff of like those algorithms. But the way I describe it is, you know, Netflix has tech people, engineers, data scientists, whatever, and then it has content people, like creative people, content executives, and all that. And my team kind of sits in between. Like I think like the tech people don't always understand the content, and the content people don't always understand the tech, and we kind of try to bridge that gap a little bit. So that's where I landed. But I remember when I got hired, like them telling me, "You're the first person that we ever hired that actually had prior experience in this field." So because I had done it a little bit at Disney, like that's how new this stuff is. But now, I'm sure every streaming service or every media company has some equivalent to this team. That's a team of people that's working on categorizing and I call it metadata field. I don't know what to call it otherwise. But
wait, Arun, is your job to watch TVs and movies all day and take notes on them?
Kind of, yeah.
How much shit can you watch in a day? And then what do you do at night?
I still watch stuff at night too. I'm just obsessed with TV and movies. That's my entire life. It's why I don't have time to know anything about basketball. I'm too busy watching movies.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people on my team that do that even more than I do. Like, so because I'm sort of on the R&D, research and development side of that, it's a little bit more like experiments and like testing things out. It does still involve watching and taking notes and stuff, but there are people on the team who that's like really their full-time job, where they're just like day in, day out watching the stuff that's going to end up on Netflix and writing various analyses about them, tagging all the various details that are going to help inform these algorithms. There are people who are doing that even more so than me, but I like where I sit in the team as well.
Wow. Can you give us any inside? Can you tell us anything? I mean, I'm sure the numbers are all private, but just about the way Netflix is thinking or how they're making content or how they use the data to make decisions?
I can't say too much. I mean, it's
proprietary.
It's proprietary to some extent, but I guess I'll say this, like, I think a lot of people assume that there's like this computer at Netflix that's just like making decisions about like what.
That is what people assume.
Yeah, and that's like very much not true.
Okay.
So there are people who are making those decisions always. It's like it's the same as at any other studio to some extent, which is that like it's kind of up to the whims of these like content executives. These people who are greenlighting things are people. Now the difference is that they have like a source for a lot of data, a lot more data than most other companies would have, and so how they interpret that data varies. But like so some executives might be more like good about seeing the right patterns in the data that like informs what they want to greenlight or not, but others don't pay attention to that at all, and they're purely going on instinct, so it's a little bit more like a regular studio than I think people think.
Oh,
But it is driven by data more than other studios.
okay. Yeah, because okay. So what I would assume is that the kissing booth does really well.
Yes.
And the executives get in the meeting and say, okay, we got to make 3 kissing booths and 5 other movies that follow this blueprint.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is would you say that there is room for somebody who comes up with a totally original idea, maybe a creator or director or showrunner that people have believe in or has a resume, and even if there's no data that would be a hit, there's still room, people would still listen to it? Or do you have to
Um,
have some analytical drive? I mean, it's so funny because I can't believe I'm comparing MMH to Netflix. We're a tiny little blog and they're a
sure,
huge corporation, but we're dealing with this too, which is like
sure.
we're very committed to social justice and having substantive conversations and exploring systems.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we're also trying to build a business.
Yeah.
And we go on every day and look at our numbers. And
Yeah.
there's a push and a pull between what we want to do and what is working.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a thing.
Yeah. Look, I think like every company is dealing with that on some level. I think one thing that I like about the way Netflix operates is that they are not driven by advertising. They're not so like those decisions about what to greenlight or not are not based on random corporate interests, which like I think is the case for like most news media, for example, right? Where like, yeah, like I think, you know, any news organization is trying to find the right balance between the content that people are actually going to click on and the content that like is going to make the public more sort of enlightened, right? And like those two things are rarely like the same. And I think the things that people are actually going to click on, that's driven by advertising, right? It's like we need people to click because we need the advertisers to give us money. Netflix fortunately doesn't have to deal with that at all. They only all of their money comes from subscriptions. So all they have to do is please their members. So
Yes.
so when you say like, you know, do we need some kind of analytic data to greenlight something? The data only has to pertain to the member base. So it's like they know who is subscribing to Netflix. They see what those viewers are watching. And that helps them determine what kind of stuff that Netflix members like, right? So like the kissing booth is just one example of the fact that Netflix, for some reason, has a huge member base of like young girls, like you know, teens and young women who like love these kinds of movies and shows. Like it's not. Sorry, am I frozen? Oh, okay. I
No.
just screen was freezing for a second. Okay. No, yeah. So I think like they recognize that there's like a huge audience for that kind of content in their member base, and so I think the bigger Netflix gets, the more that they do kind of want that kind of proof, I suppose, or like that kind of belief that like there's an audience for this. So, and how do you prove that there's an audience for it? It's hard. It's like you can point to the other content on the service that is working, but then it's hard to do like a completely original idea, right? Because like if you have something that is not like anything that's ever been on Netflix before, then you don't have something to point to say, well, this did well or didn't do well.
Right. The
So
reference point.
yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, every studio, Netflix included, I think this is why they're so addicted to like IP based stuff, because they can at least say, well, the intellectual property, the original book or whatever had an audience, and therefore we know that there will be at least some audience for the show. So that's one version of it. And another version is, well, we know the kissing booth did well, and therefore like this other like teen rom-com should do well. So if you're doing something completely original, you need to find some other way to make that association with other viewers. Whether that's like the right actor, right? Like it's a completely original idea, but like we know that everyone's going to watch a Ryan Reynolds movie, so we're going to get Ryan Reynolds to do it, and then so I think there's the ways around it are still like you have to get something. You have to get something to hook them. Yeah, so that's part of what makes it so hard to get an original idea made. It's like you need something to hook people who need to check that box that says to their boss, like, if this fails, it's not my fault. Like, like it says, like, oh no, I did my due diligence. It's based on IP, therefore, like all the numbers.
It has Ryan Reynolds.
It has Ryan Reynolds. It was supposed to succeed.
Joey
Not
King.
my fault it didn't work out.
So yeah. Arun, I feel like we could honestly talk for another 2 hours.
Oh yeah, sure. No, I love this. Yeah.
I have like 6 more questions that we didn't even get to, and some interesting ones. Well, maybe we can have you back and check in again.
Sure. Yeah.
Real quick though, because you said you're such a cinephile, you're professionally in the industry. What's your favorite film of the year?
Of 2022 so far?
Yeah. We're 4 months in here. Have you seen anything that spoke to you?
So it's the internet's favorite movie right now, but I think Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh yeah, that's an easy one. That was a softball. That's everyone's favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a perfect movie, and I think
You've seen it.
I have seen it. I liked it. And I'm excited. I want to see it again. It's one of those movies that just like feels like it has so many details in it that like I'll see something new the next time I see it, and I think that always makes me like a movie more too. That said, like I feel like it's been a really good year for movies already so far. Like I really liked The Batman a lot. I really liked X.
Everyone's loving X.
I really liked Turning Red. There's the Pixar movie. And there's a bunch more on my list that I think are going to be great that I haven't gotten to yet. I think it bodes well for the rest of the year. So something might take Everything Everywhere All at Once's place.
Oh, there's a lot coming. There's a Scorsese.
Yeah.
There's a bunch coming down the pike. What was your favorite film of last year? That's really an eye of the beholder. I can't believe Coda won.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if like so I felt like last year's set of Oscar nominees was not reflective of the best movies of the year.
I think a lot of people think that.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think. I really liked The French Dispatch.
Okay.
And like I wish that had gotten some love at the Oscars.
Cool.
Pig. I loved Pig, the Nicolas Cage movie.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cool. And but it's a very small movie that like it's not for everybody. That's the case with any of these movies though, right? I mean, Power of the Dog is not for everybody, but it's just happened to be one of the flavors they liked this year. So and Coda turned out to be the one that hit enough people, I guess, to be Best Picture. I liked Coda too. I liked Coda plenty. Yeah. I'm not mad at it winning Best Picture, frankly. I think there are a lot of worse options on the table. So I'm glad it got it over a few others, I'll say.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, we'll leave this to be continued because cool. I want to get into more. I have more questions about your work. I love exploring the industry. You're so in it and have complex thoughts about everything going on. And I'm a musician full time, and I'm a huge hoops head. So movies is something that I love, but in this journey of MMH, connecting with people in the industry, I'm like learning a lot and having a ball. It's the one I kind of feel the least understanding.
Wow. Well, I'm happy to talk about movies all day. That's what I do already anyway, and I love doing it. So.
Do you write?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Do you mean do I write for Netflix? No.
No, but you write your own work. Do you would you write? Would you do a piece? Well, we can actually do this off air.
Oh, okay. Maybe, yeah. I mean, I'd have to hear more about what that would entail and look more at the site. Frankly, I haven't explored MMH deeply enough, but I can, and yeah, let's definitely talk about it.
Okay, cool. We'll follow up. All right, Arun, thank you so much. It was a pleasure
Yeah.
having you.
Oh, it was great to be here. Thank you.
Cool. All right, let me press